Coming in as we go as well. Once again, Mr. Stephen Hamilton from Alcon will be joining us here in just a moment as well. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a minute and say good afternoon, let everybody know who you are and that you're here.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Stacey Lennox from Game On, normally on Fridays on WNJC, 5 p.m. drive time right before Yahoo Sports.
This is Lou Esposito of For Whom the Bell Tolls in Office Hours with Dr. Arrington. I am usually Tuesdays at 5 p.m. on Office Hours with Dr. A, who is right here with me. Dr. Arrington?
I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America, too. This is Dr. A, and welcome to CPAC, everybody.
That was that Dr. A, baby, that Dr. Randy Arrington. He be writing them books. You got to take that shotgun out, shoot the lock off your wallet, grab that credit card. What's the name of that book, Doc?
Politics in America, lecture notes of a lunatic professor.
That's good. I love the Sominex way that you try to sell it. All right, this is your book. Yeah, my book is called The Thing by me. Please buy it. It is eminently interesting. We're going to have a very good afternoon panel here as we wrap up CPAC 2016 in the lobby by the ballroom in the Gaylord Hotel down here in that National Harbor, Maryland, stretching through tomorrow, Sunday, what is it, March 6th? Anybody who's still around tonight, try to find the suite number for the Unsustainable Hot Tub Congressman Party with the Vito and Vito Show. That's going to be crazy. Coming up in a few minutes, we have the honor to be bringing you that Mr. Benji Baca. Took a little break coming back into politics, formerly with the Blaze. He's got Dana's wing over him, so he is blessed. He's coming back to tell you why it's important to take breaks and why he got himself back into politics.
And we got Sam Sorbo coming up at 4:30-ish.
Do what now?
Sam Sorbo of the Sam Sorbo Show.
Oh, I was thinking like Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo's wife, as a matter of fact.
Ooh, I'm sticking around, baby.
I know, right?
Well, I just did get some early statewide results from Kansas.
And what were those
results?
Early statewide results from Kansas. 53% of the caucus went for Cruz, 21% for Donald Trump, 14% for Marco Rubio, and 10% for Kasich. So
hang on. Back that up a second. What was that number for Trump again?
21 as a second to Cruz, who is currently taking about 53% of the vote.
So wait, Mr. Huge came in second again?
Huge is at 21%. He's so huge. Hey, everybody, you should see. I got my own discount Trump University diploma here at CPAC this week. It's called the certificate.
Is it worth the paper it's printed on?
I don't know. It only cost me $19,990.
What does it say on the back? It says "Made in China and perfect for bum wiping." This is good.
Yeah. And the official diploma they're giving out there is now called the Certificate of Deception.
Nice.
You know, this is not a safe space because Dr. A is sitting at the table. So wake up, America. I think I've got something to say to you. And here's what I have to say. Miss Stacey, I think JD is incredibly humorous. She doesn't think that. What do you I think he's very funny.
No. She locks me in the crate like the Gimp in Pulp Fiction until the next radio show.
She tries to manage you, control you.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, as if anybody could fix him.
I will tell you something. It's amazing. I'm looking at this Trump University diploma, and, you know, if any American actually thought they had to pay $36,000 just to get themselves screwed, they were looking at the wrong whore.
Nice. You know, I mean, I guess the thing that I have with Trump, you know, I mean, is it my imagination or wasn't he supposed to speak here today?
Okay, let me do this because I was here last year. Stephen was here last year. Jeb Bush came to the convention here at National Harbor, Maryland last year, and JD and I made a good bit of fun of him because he bussed in supporters. I mean, the bus was parked right out the back here. But there was quite an eventful protest of him speaking here at CPAC, full of Gadsden flags and costumes, and he started speaking and everybody else got up and walked out. Now, he didn't speak on the first day, so obviously he had operatives here understanding that this thing was going to happen. Well, the reason Donald Trump did not come here had to do with, A, he was going to have to answer questions, and B, his operatives here on the ground became aware that he was going to be protested when he showed up. You don't not show up when you're going to be protested. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, if anything, you show up just to prove to people that you can handle the fact. I mean, what's he thinking? I'm going to be the commander-in-chief and nobody's ever going to disagree with him?
This is the guy, and I'm going to say it again, who has decided we need to modify the First Amendment so people can stop writing quote-unquote hit pieces, be they true, be they accurate, be they opinion. So he doesn't like anyone anywhere saying anything contrary to his own narrative or his own opinion for any reason. Certainly nothing negative about him.
Hey, guys, we got a surprise stop by. I believe Kelly Ward is about to sit down at the table with us and have a little bit of a conversation. Kelly Ward is challenging John McCain for his Senate seat in Arizona, and we love her. And we are so happy to have her and her husband, Michael, here. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Lou. It's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
And it was great to have interviewed you before. And it's great to actually meet you.
I know
in
it's
person.
nice to see you face to face.
I know. It was great. It really is.
It's much easier than on the phone.
Yes, it is easier on the phone. And it's just great to see you because I think so much of you. And I'm really supporting your campaign, as you know. And I don't really do that very much on the radio, but you're somebody that I really love and I really believe in. And why don't you tell people why I believe in you so much?
Wow, well, I appreciate that so much. I'm taking on this challenge of trying to unseat an over 3-decade entrenched incumbent previous presidential nominee for the GOP because it's time for a change. 30 years in Washington, D.C. changes a person, and unfortunately it has changed John McCain. If it weren't the case, I wouldn't be taking this on. But, he gets up every 6 years, and he is a campaign conservative. And then he goes back to Washington, D.C., and he decimates conservative ideas and ideals and attacks true conservatives here, there, and everywhere, doesn't utilize his prowess to attack the Democrats and the progressives. Instead, he likes to see himself as a maverick who crosses the aisle and delivers some of our votes to the other guys to pass those progressive big government policies. How many times have you seen him cross the aisle and drag some of their people back to our side?
Way too many.
Yeah. Well, no, he never brings them back our way, but he takes them over there every time. Every time. And so, I think it's time for a change, and people in Arizona are looking for a competent, qualified, capable person who's ready to take the reins and hit the ground running in Washington, D.C. and do the job, to look for common sense ideas that will move this country in the right direction. Of course, I think it needs to take a sharp right turn and then move forward, but we've got to get the right people in place if we want that right turn.
Absolutely, and we want to change the players, and I think that you're one of the new players that we want to see in D.C. for sure. And one thing that people may not know about you is that you are an emergency room doctor.
Yes.
Not a nurse. A doctor. A female doctor. Woo! And not that there aren't lots of you guys
more now.
out there. There's lots of you out there now.
Thanks to people who paved the way.
But one of your issues has been Obamacare. So tell us what your plan for that is, or what do you want to see happen there?
Well, of course, I believe Obamacare must be fully repealed, period. And that includes repealing all of the taxes and all of the regulations that go along with Obamacare, because that alone will save our country billions, if not trillions of dollars. Now, I have proposed a health policy plan, a health plan called the Patient Power Plan. And in that Patient Power Plan, we will put the power of healthcare back where it belongs. We'll take it away from politicians, and we'll take it away from bureaucrats and insurance company executives, and we will put it smack dab in the hands of patients, because we all, as patients, deserve the healthcare that we want and the healthcare that we need, rather than having to settle for what the government is willing to give us. So that has to be done through health savings accounts and catastrophic care coverage for true emergencies, something that you truly use insurance for. Because you know what? When you buy car insurance, you hope not to use it, right? And if you buy life insurance, you hope to heck not to use it, at least not for a really, really long time. But when people get health insurance, suddenly if they get a mosquito bite or they skin their knee, they're in the emergency department. And so we've got to get that under control so that we have high quality, cost effective, and great access to care. And we can do that through the free market and through competition.
And nobody knows really more about that than an emergency room doctor. So I think that you're uniquely qualified.
Yes, well, I will tell you that I get to see, because, being a policymaker, when I was in the state Senate in Arizona, I get to see the effect impacts of the policies that are passed at the national level, at the federal level, and at the state level in action in the emergency room. And I will tell you that I used to say I see the good, the bad, and the ugly of Obamacare and Medicaid expansion. Well, now I've crossed out the good. I see the bad and I see the ugly. An example is the last time that I worked, I saw a girl that was 27 or 28 years old, no chronic medical illnesses, anything like that, but she has been to the ER 30 times. Now, a lot of people say, oh, 30 times. I'm like, and not just 30 times in her life, 30 times since June. And so that goes back to what the president said, that we've got to have people have skin in the game. Well, there are a lot of people with no skin in the healthcare game who are utilizing the most expensive kind of healthcare in the wrong way to get truly excellent health.
And even those of us with insurance who've been to the emergency room know that is the most expensive way to get health care is to go to the ER.
Yes, it is.
And most of us, if we have insurance, we'll avoid it like the plague because we know that.
Yes. Well, and also, you have to pay the bill. But if you are on the taxpayer type of healthcare welfare, Medicaid, then there is no bill for you to pay.
And I'll take this opportunity to just remind people that this is a local election with national consequences for this reason, because it is you're challenging a 3-decade senator with a ton of power and a ton of sway, and to get a new player in that position, I think would really start to sway the power in Washington. Another thing that we've seen with both the Senate and the House is that they've ceded so much of their power to the executive branch.
Yeah. Well, the executive branch via not just letting the executive run away and do whatever he wants, but also via regulations through the unelected bureaucracies that permeate Washington, D.C. and this entire country. And I'm glad to see Mike Lee starting his Article 1 project, where he is trying to rein that in, because what they do in Congress right now is they pass these sweeping regulations that say, we want clean water, we want clean air. Of course we want that. But then they tell the bureaucrats in different agencies to now go and figure out how to do it, make the rules and the regulations, and then what do bureaucrats do? Bureaucrats make bureaucracy. And so that's why we've got to rein it in and get the power back where it belongs, into the hands of the people via the elected officials.
Absolutely.
Can we let Dr. Ray get in a word edgewise here?
No.
Oh, well, let me provide some. Let me provide some background here. Dr. A is one that successfully wrangled and lassoed Dr. Ward and Michael, her husband, to appear on the show. She's going to appear on the shows later on in the future for a whole hour. Okay, so I'm the one that did the legwork here. I'm getting ready to do that. I walked up to her in the bold fashion that a naval aviator uses, told her who I was, Dr. Ray Dearington, office hours, Dr. Ray, would you do an interview? And she kept slowly walking like I was nobody until I told her two things. One, I have flown John McCain before, and two, my producer's name is Lou Bell. I love Lou, just like everybody else. They love you, and I get little respect.
I do love Lou.
That's not true.
You are the Rodney Dangerfield of our station, sir.
I told Dr. Ward and her husband, Michael Ward, Dr. Ward, squared, that John McCain is my naval aviator brother, and I love him to death with agape type love. But I have told him, man to man, face to face, looked him in the eye, and said, sir, it is time for you to retire. You have to go and let somebody else come in there with the young blood and conservative values and principles come in there and take over for Arizona and the national implications, actually global implications. And I've told him that. What do you think?
I support term limits. I didn't really have an opinion in the past, before I got into elected office, because I thought the best term limit was at the ballot box, that we'd be able to vote people out. But the people that are in Washington, D.C. right now have stacked the deck against insurgent candidates like me, against outsiders, and made it so that it is very, very difficult for somebody who's not an incumbent to get into Washington, D.C. So that's why we have to have term limits, because, I think 12 years in Washington, D.C. is more than enough time for anyone, and I think that it's time for the next generation to be trained and ready to go, and they will have the energy and the stamina to take the country in the right direction.
I'm going to write an article on term limits, but the problem with term limits at the ballot box is this: 87% of elected members of the House get reelected. 91% of the senators get reelected. You talk to people and they say, I hate Congress, but I love my guy.
I think that's changing, especially in Arizona. It's hard to find a lot of love for Senator McCain, which I feel bad because he has served his country for a long time. He served his country in the military, and I have all the respect in the world for that. But he hasn't figured out that it's time for him to retire. Now, hopefully we are sending that message to him, and hopefully he will start to feel confident that I can take the reins, and I will not do anything that would not make him and Arizona proud. And so, you never know what could happen between now and May 30th. May 30th is the filing deadline. I'd welcome Senator McCain over to my team. If he wants to come on board, and say, I'm not running, I'd welcome him.
Senator McCain, please join the Ward team.
Join Team Ward.
Come out and retire and endorse Kelly Ward.
Exactly, because I think it would send a strong message that he wants the country to move down the right path.
Enjoy his grandkids.
Yes.
And retire and enjoy his grandkids and let you do the work. Now, one other issue that I want to ask you about before we pass to our next guest, because we have a couple other people that we're going to interview, and I know you have lots of stuff you want to do. You have also come out for Second Amendment.
Of course.
Rights. Say a little bit about that, because that's probably something people don't expect from you, but I've heard a lot from you
I've been a huge supporter of our Second Amendment. In the Arizona State Senate, I sponsored the Second Amendment Protection Act every single year that I was there. Of course, it was thwarted by big government Republicans that joined with the Democrats so that it never was able to get signed into law. They're still trying, though. I passed that torch on to some other legislators. They're trying to get those kind of common sense bills into effect. But I will always stand strong for our Second Amendment and stand against gun control, because we all know that gun control only adversely affects law-abiding gun owners. The criminals are not going to obey any new laws. They don't obey the laws now. Why would they suddenly start to obey new gun control laws? They won't. And so we've got to stand strong in supporting our entire Constitution and Bill of Rights, and especially our Second Amendment.
And Kelly would do the exact same thing in the U.S. Senate.
Exactly right.
Kelly, thank you so much for stopping by on your way to, and say hello, Michael.
Howdy.
And that's Kelly's husband, Michael Ward, who is also a doctor and probably your strongest campaign worker.
Oh yes, he is strong. He does. My mom does. My kids do. My in-laws. Everybody. It really gives me the support that I need to be able to do it.
The state of Arizona loves you.
Exactly. Yeah, they do. They do. It's great. And hey, I hope your listeners will join me at kellyward.com or on Facebook at Kelly Ward for Arizona or on Twitter at Kelly Ward AZ. The important thing is they have to remember it's Kelly with an I, because I care about the people. So join me.
There you go. I like that. And this is a local campaign, a state campaign with national consequences. So everybody remember that. And even if you're not in Arizona and you can't vote for Kelly, you can support her and you can get out there.
Yeah, my husband says push the donate button. You can push the donate button, but you can also share social media posts. That helps increase my name ID, because I'm going up against a guy with nearly 100% name identification. So I've got to increase mine, and you all can help me do it.
Exactly. So get out there and support Kelly, even if you're not in Arizona. Thanks so much for
thanks,
stopping
Lou.
by.
Thanks,
We
Dr.
really
A.
Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to America Off the Rails, the Roundhouse Edition, right here live on WNJC 1360 AM out of Philadelphia. We are live at CPAC. That was Dr. Kelly Ward, candidate for Senate for Arizona. Hopefully we will get her on again soon. If you're just now tuning in and you've missed it, this segment will be live on K98 Talk tomorrow evening in our normally scheduled time for America Off the Rails at 11 Eastern, 10 Central. So while we're making way for our next guest to get situated, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors. That would be RebelRoadTactical.com. I'm actually sporting their gear right now at CPAC. Make sure you're checking him out on their website, especially if you are into concealed carry or want a decent holster, because he is a guy that will make you whatever it is that you want. As of right now, we have JD sitting down with us, as well as one Mr. Benjamin Backer, or Benji Backer, I do believe. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good.
And for those of you who are familiar with conservative activist politics, that's why you listen to that WNJC 1360 AM, covering that Philadelphia, Southern Jersey, and Northern Delaware. You should be very familiar with Benji Backer. If you are not, I suggest right now you walk downstairs, open the door of your house, walk out into traffic, close your eyes, and stay there. Benji, welcome to the program, baby.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be here.
And I'd like last year we ran into you at CPAC, and for those of you who don't know, basically your profile here at CPAC began about 4 years ago when you were about 14 years old, correct?
Oh, I thought he was 9.
And
Something like that.
He's just 13 now, right?
Right.
Okay.
Benji's he's 18, young looking, but actually when you speak to him, he has wisdom beyond his years. And I'd like you to catch our audience up with what you were doing right up until CPAC 2015, what precipitated the break you took, and why it was so important for you to be back here this week and come back into politics. And don't forget to tell people where they can find you, baby, and how they buy them things.
Sure. So I actually became active when I was 10 years old, and my first CPAC was in 2013. I came here just for fun with some of my friends, and I had the pleasure of being introduced to people such as Dana Lash, Ben Howe, Eric Erickson. Had some great contacts right away. And within a...
Because you were cute.
Hey, it's got to help, right? Within a few weeks, they were helping me with the connections, and I started writing for some great sites like FreedomWorks, and I eventually posted a blog about how my teachers had harassed me in the classroom because of my views, and that's what burst me onto the national scene. I had interviews on Fox News with Dana Lash on the radio, Laura Ingraham on the radio. Had some really cool opportunities there, and that kind of opened up the door for me to a lot of different things. I started speaking across the country at different conventions. I spoke at CPAC the following year. And I started writing for IJ Review and The Blaze, and I continued to be active locally doing campaign work, because for me, it's not just about spreading the message nationally. You need to be active locally and helping out local candidates as well, because that's just as important or more important than the activism on the national level. And then last year, I did not have the opportunity to speak, and then after CPAC, I decided to take a break from politics, like you mentioned. And I did that because of a lot of reasons. I had seen a lot of things through my political time that had frustrated me, and it kept on frustrating me more and more to see organizations use people, politicians use people, and that was frustrating to see, especially as I was just starting to get on the national scene. Additionally, I'm the type of person that likes to work with other people no matter what their opinion, and so I was really frustrated by the divide, not only between the two parties and the two movements, but between the own movement, like the conservative movement splitting up, the liberal movement splitting up. It's split into factions, and now it's even worse than it was then.
And then you add ego to that as well.
Right, and you add ego. And so that was the other problem for me. I have great parents. I have a great support system around me that tells me what's wrong and what's right. And I could tell that I was becoming selfish. I could tell that I was not doing things for the right reasons anymore, and I didn't like that. I wanted to make a difference, but I didn't want to do it for the wrong reasons. So I wanted to take a step back, figure out what my priorities were, and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to come back to politics at some point, because I'm going to college next year, and I wasn't really sure.
So I interviewed you first time, I think it was almost 3 years ago.
Yes, it was.
Down in Florida at
the county jail.
The county jail. I was in jail, and Benji showed up. It was,
he was volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he brought me a box lunch.
There were box lunches there.
Yeah, there were box lunches there. Absolutely.
That's not even wrong.
So the question I have is, you've seen some other young people that have gone through this, and it seems to change them, seems to stress them out. Maybe they're not quite founded where they think they were, right? And maybe they changed a little bit. What has been that impact on you? What's kept you steady? You seem you definitely seem more mature now. I'll give you that. And
he told us it's the heroin.
Yeah, it is the heroin. It's got to be. But no, how
I told you not to say that on the air.
No, but you've seen that. You've seen that. There's the effect that it's had. So how have you been able to kind of stay, true to your conservative roots and ideologies through that?
So looking back on it, I actually advise people. You look at the case of C.J. Pearson, Jonathan Crone, and others that maybe weren't as well known. They changed their viewpoints over the course of a few years, because if you get active when you're 12 years old, I started when I was 10. You don't really know what you're doing. You want to make a difference, but you don't even really understand yourself. Right. I'm 18, and I know I don't fully understand myself still. Mm-hmm. And so when you're active that early, it can be a very dangerous thing. And so I think that the conservative movement needs to realize that putting kids on a pedestal for their movement is a dangerous thing, and it's not something that is very smart for the movement to do. For me, my morals and my beliefs were there, and they are steady. But for a lot of other people, that's not the truth. And a lot of other influences, not just their family but it can be their friends, their teachers, whatever, can influence their beliefs. And so this is the time where beliefs change constantly. I mean, when you're a teenager, you have so many things that you're going through that you don't know what you believe until basically you get through it. And so if you're starting to get active before you hit the teenage years, I mean, that can be a horrible thing. So for me, I was lucky enough to have a good support system around me and good morals that were developed before I even hit the teenage years. I've had some views that have, changed over the years, but it's not been dramatic. I've gotten more far right on some issues and more modern on certain issues, but I'm still a strong conservative.
He used to be nicer to me on Twitter. He used to be nicer to me on Twitter.
All right. You know what? We're going to have to air this out right now. We're going to have to air this out and squash this here at CPAC, all right? Let's get a 40 to put down for the homies' tweets that didn't make it, all right? There is a big showdown right now here between Hammy and Ben. There's a little saltiness, I understand. Was there not?
I took it easy. I took it easy on the youngster until he obviously proved himself to be smarter than me, and then I found myself at a distinct disadvantage to an 18-year-old. The interesting thing is that this is the kind of the common debate that we have, which is, and we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, within the conservative movement, where we're almost getting super nitpicky between groups of people that, in any other circumstances, we'd be sitting there going, that's the same bag of donuts.
This is everybody right now going, everybody wants to date a supermodel. Oh, no, that one, she was just Miss USA. She wasn't Miss Universe. Everybody, honestly, within the sound of my voice, if you're a Rubio or a Cruz supporter and you want to go to war with each other over the differences in your candidate, and at the same time you're going to go out there and rail against the hand grenade that is in Donald Trump that's been rolled into the Republican primary, I want you to honestly, after the show, think long and hard about that. Because I see Cruz and Rubio supporters, not all of them, but I see them sometime, whether it's on social media, even here at CPAC in certain ways. They line up for those. I know Benji hasn't seen West Side Story because he is 14 months old. But there was a movie.
I have seen that.
All right, so there's a Sharks and a Jets lineup almost.
He doesn't know the tunes.
Between the Cruz and Rubio supporters. And I am speaking to you. I've made my point over and over again with Stacey on our show. I do not see that divide. You can have your guy, and you can say, I like this guy a little more than the other, but, for those of you right now who are divvying up jerseys and saying, this one's the best and this one is nothing, I don't see a lot different than what you see on the progressive side.
And this goes back to what I was talking about very early in the campaign, purity tests. What will kill the conservative movement over time is purity tests. So, everybody, Gang of 8, 2013, Gang of 8, 2013. So, we're going to forgive Donald Trump for the flip-flops he's done for the last 10 years, let alone the last 10 days.
70 years.
Okay.
10 hours.
10 hours? He was coming to CPAC, wasn't coming to CPAC. Right. Yeah, there you go.
There have been so many beautiful Mexicans through my wife's door. I vowed to build a wall.
So, but I mean... we give no room to a Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Rand Paul or somebody who's been in Congress who actually said, well, wait a minute, maybe what I did then wasn't what I should have done, and here's how I'd make it different now. Positions moderate, even when you're 43.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And we like so many people at the beginning of this election were giving no room to Marco Rubio to modify his position on immigration, and they still don't.
I mean, we were in our 40s, and I found it very interesting before when you said, at my age, I'm at a time in my life where, certain things might change. Outside of your core beliefs, outside of your heart and soul felt core beliefs, for your entire life, Benji. We got more than twice the age on you, and we're going to change and evolve over time. You're going to evolve in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s over things, but it's those core principles and beliefs, and I think that, to my mind, when I see people flailing around out there looking for something to latch onto politically, to my mind, they are most likely people that do not have, like you were saying, that you were so blessed and privileged to have parents who raised you to have these beliefs, and allowed you to do the thinking on your own to embrace them. And, let me ask you a question. As a young guy coming up in the conservative movement.
It's me or Benji?
Of course you, Hammy. So let's talk about the Goldwater election of...
Benji, you talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about why you took a break. Why did you decide to come back this week?
Well, okay, so it's been about a year, and I'm almost...
He met you.
That's right. I met you again.
No. You met him last year and you left.
Yeah, that's right. I ruined Benji.
I saw him again, and now I'm back. It's crazy how this works.
Crazy.
No, but I'm coming back for a lot of the reasons that I left. The divide. You know, I want to be a positive voice. I want to be a unifying voice for young conservatives because there aren't enough of them. There aren't enough people pushing a unified message. Like you were saying, the Rubio supporters go after Cruz like he's the devil, and vice versa.
Right.
They should be doing that with Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders.
I would walk over broken glass to vote for either Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz in the general election.
Exactly.
And then JD would lick them bloody feet, baby.
That was a visual we did not need.
That was
folks.
just gross.
I don't think I've ever heard something like that before.
So, back to Donald Trump for just a second, because everybody keeps saying he's not a career politician. Isn't this the guy that's been running or trying to run for president
since 1988? Yeah.
That is absolutely
a career crony.
Who was the one that made that point that we so agreed? Was it
Andrew?
So Andrew Langer made the point when we had him on the air yesterday. Andrew Langer from the Langer Hour over on the Realm Radio Network. He's also with the Institute for Liberty, and he had an excellent point. And there is enough out there that you can see this. Rush Limbaugh said something about this about a week ago, but it was in a more recent context. Donald Trump has been planning this run probably since the mid or late 1980s. And to my mind, if you look at the breadcrumbs he's left out there for you to, and the tea leaves for you to read, he's basically just been trying to identify the right moment and cycle to get in, because at the end of the day, once everybody realized it wasn't going to be a big promo for The Apprentice and he was actually going to run, Donald Trump's not going to run for office unless he thinks he's got a shot at winning it. And I think that his candidacy to the conservative movement should be a canary in the coal mine. Because when the rest of us conservatives sat here and looked at the field and said it's either going to be Hillary or Bernie, and we had what we were calling the deepest, most substantive bench in maybe 30 years.
He had some great candidates.
And it was Donald Trump who was right about this, and we were wrong. He looked at a field that if he's been looking at for close to 30 years to enter, he stayed out of the other cycles, and in this one he said, I can do this. I can beat these idiots. And, we'd be sitting here in the beginning of this going, are you insane? Do you see the depth in what we have? And we sit here on March 5th with him not even having to come to CPAC. And I think it's a canary in the coal mine to the conservative movement. As a young conservative, how do you see this? Do you see a movement in flux? Do you see a movement in need of blowing up and rebuilding? Or
I think if we nominate Donald Trump, I think that we need to blow up and rebuild, because that's not a conservative.
Can I get an amen? I'm just saying.
Amen, Brother Rick.
He is not a conservative, and we were just talking. You said he's been planning this since the 80s, right? What was he in the 80s? A liberal. He's been planning.
What is he now?
He was a liberal. A liberal now.
Thank you.
He runs as a conservative.
No. He runs as a Republican.
In quotations.
But he's a populist.
Oh, I completely agree. But what's crazy is that he's been planning this for so long, and he would have ran when he was a liberal, and he's still a liberal, but now he's running now as a quote-unquote Republican, and no one can notice that. They're so ignorant.
It's I think it's because and this goes back to blowing up the movement, because we were just having a conversation before about how important the Constitution is and what the founding documents mean. And I think if you blow up the movement, that separates people who are sitting there and going, you want to know what? I'm sick of this. I just want to win.
Yep.
Hey, man, everybody wants to win. That's why lotto is such a big thing all over the country. Everybody wants to win, baby. You got to be in
the bigger the lotto.
That's right. But I think that people are tired and people are beaten down and people are so disaffected as to what's being sold to them. You have to differentiate now. You have two out-year election cycles in 2010 and 2014, which if you put a label on it was very good for the quote-unquote Tea Party.
Yep.
But it's become hard for people now within the last 6 to 10 years to say, okay, well, which is actually a real good organization and which one is taking donations and actually paying their directors $500,000 a year instead of actually being activists to bring up the right candidates. And I think you see the same thing with candidates. I'll say it right now. You had Adam Kinzinger in Illinois who ran on the Tea Party platform. Not that the conservative, and he was the one who got nailed. Never going to vote. He spent a ton of money doing his office over like downtown Abbey, and he was one of the first Congress people to endorse Donald Trump for president. So you have these people that said, but I listened to what they said, and we don't lose, and now I just want to win. If you're so tired that you just want to win, do you have the fight to go forward? And I think that goes to your point about blowing up the movement.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that over the course of the next few months, we're going to see what's going to happen with the movement. But I don't want to be part of a movement where Donald Trump is the front runner. And
me neither.
Yeah, he'll never be the front runner of the conservative movement. I mean,
no.
The conservative movement's where it is right now because they refuse to Einschweig and get behind their leader. So I just don't see it.
That's why he didn't come here.
The other problem is that this election is turning a lot of young people away from the conservative and Republican movement because
thank you.
As a young person who goes to a conservative high school, I see my friends who are conservative and my friends who are liberal who are like, wow, that's what the Republican Party is? And they're ignorant. They don't know very much about politics, but that's what they're seeing. They're seeing Donald Trump constantly win. Doesn't matter what he says. Doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter what he misses. Doesn't matter what he does. And we're still supporting him. And so they're like, what is the Republican Party? Is that seriously what they are?
And as a mom, I'll just say I have children I've raised with conservative values. They did well in school. They've gotten Max scholarships. They all have jobs. They work hard. They've earned their own stuff.
You have two you could set up with, or one. You have one you could set up with Benjamin.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
But literally, had you text them both on primary day in Georgia and say, I've never asked you how you're going to vote because I believe that's personal, right? I mean, they're good kids with good values. If you're going to vote Democrat, Hillary's got a lock on Georgia. If you could please go vote in the Republican primary for someone other than Donald Trump, and here's why. And both of my daughters, because they love their mother, went and voted in the primary and voted on the Republican side for someone other than Donald Trump. And my embarrassment, even with my youngest, who's 15, is that I've raised you this way. I believe a good way to be raised. You work hard, you do well, you know. And the first election you can vote in, this is what the party I've chosen is going to offer you. I'm mortified.
It's the first one for me, too.
Yeah.
And if you're just joining us right now on WNJC 1360, we are proud and privileged to bring to you Benji Backer live here from CPAC 2016 at the Gaylord Hotel down there in National Harbor, Maryland, baby. Counting down the last few hours, we're going to be live on the radio before we go with our political geeks, freaks, and back alley sneaks to have all sorts of after-hours conservative fun. To the point that you guys were just making, I don't know if it's a tinfoil hat thought or a more Machiavellian thought. I think from a consultancy point of view, to Benji's point, about even being in a conservative high school and just having this clown show of a nonsensical traveling carnival, right, that's been going on with him up there talking about his schmeckle and his joint in a presidential debate. You know, if I'm grandma and I get the nomination, and my playbook is all full of identity politics and class warfare anyway, and I was going to use the war on women and misogynists, even if it was Uncle Ben Carson. You know, that no matter who it was, they're going to use the same playbook. And I haven't heard anybody else say this. I actually believe that this might be the first major presidential cycle in maybe 70 or 80 years. I could see if Trump got the nomination, Hillary Clinton saying, because she's not a good debater and she's not a good retail candidate, I could honestly see her saying, I will not debate that man. He doesn't debate. He insults. He's not going to talk about policy. It's a waste of my time. He talks about his anatomy when he's on the stage with other men. What do you think kind of crass things I should expose myself onto a stage? You want to know what? I'm going to run for president of the United States, and those nights when they're having debates, I'm going to let P.T. Barnum go have his clown show, and I'm going to give a speech somewhere and be substantive. And I can't stand that fat piano leg lying thief with an AIDS-ridden about to drop dead husband. I can't. But you want to know something? And yes, it was.
She's right.
I don't care. Everybody says he looks like that because of heart surgery. Ain't no way you messed around your wife that much and you ain't got yourself some AIDS right now. But the whole point is, I couldn't argue with her if she said that. I honestly, at this point, could not argue with her if she said that.
And the scary thing is, even if she ditched every single debate, she'd probably still win.
Yep.
That's for damn sure. You know,
because she would be a much more respectable candidate than one who just throws names around, and that's an easy excuse and a reasonable excuse for somebody not to debate him. I mean, she would be right. That is not a debate.
Right.
And she would just say, I'm going to take the high road. I'm not going to debate Donald Trump. He's not true. He's not a true American. He's not a true, and she would easily walk away with the victory. But I think that she would easily walk away with the victory anyways, because there's so many Republicans and conservatives who will not vote for him, and I'm one of them.
Yep, never Trump. Now, going back to...
You forgot the hashtag. Hashtag
we're on radio. We're on radio. Hello. Hello, guy. Were you looking for the camera? That's why we're wearing Rebel Road tactical T-shirts and not suits right now. It's radio.
Speaking of cameras, turn around. Other way.
JD. With WNJC, baby. 1360 AM. Serving that Philadelphia, Southern Jersey, Northern Delaware. Not yet. We're getting there. Well, thank you very much. We dropped here with Benji Backer, Ricky Tiki Tavi, Rick Robinson, host of America Off the Rails, 5 nights a week, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that K98 Talk, all part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network here at WNJC. I got the beautiful Stacy, my radio co-host from Game On, and that Lou Bell, baby, sitting over here with her national security experience, just waiting to go. Dr. A standing back there in the wings, the king of the airways in WNJC, Rick Trader, overseeing it all. Back to the interview with Mr. Backer. Benji, one of the things I'd like you to make the point of what the break did for you and why it was important, because so many people are so dispirited. One of the first things I said when we ran into each other at that event the other night is, I'm glad you took a break, man. And I think if this happens to you again, you should take another break. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here right now.
No, I wouldn't.
And you wouldn't be this passionate.
Right.
So if you could just give the audience a little, nothing too deep, but a little personal flavor of, hey, man, I needed it, I took it, and it was a good idea.
Yep, and that's exactly how I feel. I think everybody in this movement needs to push it really hard, their activism really hard, but with that comes the consequences of feeling burnt out. It's not always easy, and so if you take a step back, that allows you to be so much more motivated when you come back that you're going to make a hell of a lot more difference doing that than if you just stuck with it, push through it. I mean, you're not doing real work then, and you're not enjoying it. And this should be, politics is something that you can enjoy. There's a lot of nasty things in it. But our movement needs to be inspired and motivated, and it can't be that way if people are just faking their way through it. So for me...
So well said.
For me, it was a great way for me to take a step back, look at things from a broad perspective, kind of reevaluate what I was going to do when I get back, and now I have a plan. I have a plan of action, and now I'm ready to get back to work. And so, but if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be ready to get back to work, and I wouldn't be pushing hard to, help push the conservative message.
Benji Backer just told you, ladies, for every ladies in the audience, whether you're 18 or 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, Benji's the one who said it. Faking it ain't never going to get you nowhere.
No.
I'll have what she's having. What shall we bet, Benji?
This movement is successful because of the grassroots people in the movement who are working hard to elect grassroots candidates. And without people who are inspired and motivated to do that, we can't be the movement with grassroots activists and grassroots messaging.
The other thing that I think is very important, and we're doing a little bit of this at the table. My take on this, whether it's Michael Loftus, who's doing the Flipside show, whether it's Tim Allen, who just got canceled, whether it's some of the newer shows that are coming up in conservative radio, I honestly believe that conservatives need to get over themselves, because funny is funny, and you have to embrace humor and pop culture while you take this political ride, because if you don't, you're going to be like one of the monks with a vow of silence up in a monastery transcribing things, and your little painted quill, and sitting there going crazy with your little bald head and your weird brown hot robe, and you're never going to have any fun, and you take what Benji just said and what he went through in the last year, and the whole time that you've been sitting here, we ran into you, man, it's nothing but smiles between everybody,
Exactly.
We'll talk a little serious politics, but a lot of it is laughing, because laughter is general. If we got airdropped into Swaziland right now, we found the Great Lost Tribe, and they have nothing written in it, click, and somebody's got the Coke bottle, the universal language to communicate with them besides math is laughter. It is. It's laughter and humor, because your average human being, unless you're Donald Trump, because of the Mexicans that have been through my wife's door, they want to laugh. They want to have a good time. They want to be inspired. And if you can do that and you can combine substance and you can combine a little knowledge, people will stick around for that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
And no one wants a serious profession where they have to be serious all the time. No one wants to work with something that they're serious all the time.
Right.
And so if you're not having fun with politics, then you're not going to want to do it.
You should see how I've tortured this poor woman with the fun that I have in politics.
Speaking of fun, I thought we weren't going to mention anything that happens in the room. The robe, the quill. I mean, come on, the painting on the wall.
Oh, well, okay.
What happened in the room stayed in the room.
Maybe because you're from Oklahoma, all right? People in the rest of the world, that's called role-playing, all right? It's very expensive by the hour, so I wish you would stop judging me for
He's
that.
18. Stop.
Oh, then he should know now. That's expensive.
No, stop. I'm a mom.
We don't have the bell to ring. What are you writing? What was the last thing you wrote? Where can they find it? What are you passionate about writing right now, specifically within the movie?
Sure. So I just got back into this week, so I haven't even written anything yet. Actually, I did write a blog explaining
You have it posted. Right.
Why I'm back into the political movement. I have a website. It's not it's not a great website, but it has some simple information on it. It's BenjiBacker.com.
Spell that.
BenjiBacker.com. And my Twitter is also at Benji Backer. I plan on writing for IG Review and The Blaze, but I'm looking to get involved with CNN, op-ed.
Oh, you were talk a little bit about that.
Because I think CNN has a good group of actually conservatives. They've got Dana Lash, they've got S.E. Cupp. They've got some great voices from the conservative movement, but they don't have anybody that's young, and they don't have anybody from the millennial.
Don't tell Dana and S.E. that.
Oh, they're young, but they're not. I guess S.E. is.
They're not the youths.
Oh my God!
They're not college, high school, or around that age.
Exactly.
You know who is going to be petrified of him over at CNN? Well, you know the Travelocity gnome?
I do.
Okay. Wolf Blitzer looks exactly like the Travelocity gnome, doesn't he?
I haven't thought about that, but he does.
But he does. Okay, and he's always yelling. But you know who Benji would scare the hell out of at CNN? Anderson Cooper. Because Anderson Cooper has been their poster boy and their movie star up there that they can do. But he's a little silver up in the nest. Now we got the new face coming up here. Benji, I like this. I can see... the hell with AC360. I want to see BB180. Now that's going to be the new CNN show.
There's nothing more creepy than when I go to a political conference and people call me BB. Because hey BB, and there's these old men who think that
you
BB...
just got called creepy.
I didn't call him BB when we met him. That was here for this.
It was an example. It was an example.
Wait, I mean, come on.
You should turn around and talk in Yiddish and tell him you're Netanyahu.
He just said you called it BB180. He said BB creepy.
BB, how you doing? People I am protecting, Palestine noble. Oh my God, that's his nickname. We're going to work out a whole BB Netanyahu.
He just said it's creepy. He doesn't like it.
I guess I'm going to need to get used to it.
Okay, so
now.
when did we ever deny that JD was creepy? Just for the record.
Sure, we never denied.
I mean, JD denies it all the time.
It's in the contract. I'm not allowed to broadcast unless I'm creepy.
But I'm really excited to try to spread my conservative message to the people that maybe don't have a voice, don't have... there's so many people who are young who have the beliefs that I do, and the beliefs that a lot of people here at CPAC do, the young people that are here, but they're not willing to shout it out because they don't know how to. They don't have anybody to really lead them through it. And there aren't enough young people who are speaking out in the movement, partly because of people like C.J. Pearson and Jonathan Cronin have ruined it for young conservatives. But the problem is I think that you can't start that young. You've got to start, late high school, early college, and then you can relate to the people who are in high school and college and start to inspire them to get active, and I hopefully will be able to do that.
See, my take on it with C.J. Pearson and somebody like you, if you came out like C.J. did and he's on, with the age, if you're an adult, I mean, to my age with the young guys coming up, if they change their mind and whatever, you leave them alone and you let them grow. You don't give them vile hate on social media. But I do think that when they have things to offer, I think that you get behind it. And that's just my take on it. And I think that's, the conservative movement needs a little more class and a lot less jackass, in my opinion.
I think I do agree with that to a point. But, when they thrust themselves into an adult world, C.J. Pearson thrusted himself into an adult world, so he needs to be treated as such, I believe. And I was treated as such as a young kid. I didn't like it, but it got me prepared for political things to this day. And I think if people like that want to be in politics, if they want to be that young and active, they need to be held to the same standard, even though they're at a different age, as other people in the movement. And I think that he, some people were too hard on him, but I think that he does need to see the criticism. Otherwise, he's never going to learn from his mistakes. And so, for me, I learned from a lot of different things that I said or did that I was criticized on. And a lot of people are like, oh, don't attack this kid. And, at that point, I was like, yeah, I agree with you. Don't attack on me. But it taught me a lot. And so I think that there's something to be said there about, holding them accountable.
4 years into it, having taken a break and coming back with everything you've accomplished, having written at the Blaze, having to get back with Dana and those people. What do you think has been your biggest misstep and mistake in the 4 years you've been doing this?
I think it was starting so early, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Because I did start when I was 10 or 12, and I had a somewhat different belief system, and I didn't really know what I was doing. My parents were never active, so I didn't really have, somebody giving me constant guidance, because my parents didn't know what to say or do about political things. They supported me 100%, but they weren't like, Benji, don't do this, don't do that. And I'm not saying you have to have somebody like that, but they had no political experience, so I think it was probably getting active so young, because it's tough to stay on the same track. And, I associated with people that don't necessarily still agree with me to this day. I was speaking at Tea Party rallies. Mm-hmm. For a while, I was paid by Tea Party Patriots, Tea Party Express, and I was doing some tours with them. And I'm not with them anymore, and I don't necessarily agree with what they do anymore. But that's just because I was so young and I was grasping at anything that was offered to me, and I said yes to way too much, because I had no experience, and my parents had no experience with that in the past. So, somebody's like, oh, do you want to write for me? Yes. And then somebody else would say, do you want to write for me? A cooler opportunity? I'd say yes. And I was like, shoot, now I have 2 yeses, and I don't know what to do. And so I think it was just so young, you don't really know how to act. And most of all, you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to say no, and I had a problem with that.
That literally, and I mean, we've interviewed Charles C.W. Cook, Judith Miller. I mean, you run down the list. That literally was one of the most insightful answers I think that we've gotten to a question. I mean, that was a really good answer. Having that experience, can you now you understand? You see how, as much as it is a movement, if you stay in it professionally, it also is a business.
Yes, it's definitely a business, and a lot of people make it their brand. A lot of young people make a brand out of it, or they create an organization that makes a difference. You see a lot of young conservatives creating organizations that are making a huge difference, or they start a chapter of those organizations, and it's definitely a business, and you have to grow yourself, and you have to represent yourself, because if you're going to be a voice of a movement, or if you're going to be part of the movement, you definitely have to represent yourself, and that's what business is about.
Now you have a hip hop clothing line for conservatives coming out called
BB.
No, I just Backers Bits or something like this. We want to thank you very, very much, Benji. Tell everybody right now where they can find you on that social media.
Twitter at Benji Backer, and you can find me on Facebook as well. And I appreciate the interview.
And listen, before we go, we're having everybody out in that audience. Take your shotgun, shoot that lock off your wallet, get that credit card ready. This is not the last you're going to hear. This gentleman, he's going to have so much good product for you to buy. I guarantee it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to America Off the Rails, a Roundhouse edition right here live from CPAC 2016. We are gearing up for our next guest. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphones over to Lou and Dr. Arrington. So at this point, you guys go ahead and take it away.
Hi, we have one of my favorite radio hosts here, Sam Sorbo, and she has the, I think, illustrious distinction of being the wife of Hercules. And that's your mic there. And
look, a microphone.
Yes, and so,
I'm the only one too.
Yeah, the only wife of Hercules.
That's
so
right.
We are so glad to have you. Welcome,
Thank
Sam.
you. I got my certificate from Trump University on the way in, so I am now a graduate of Trump University.
Wonderful.
Very excited.
And it is worth about half of the paper that it's written on.
Worth the paper it's written
on.
Yeah, I need to fill in the name and I need to date it. And I'll be good to go.
Dominated the last interview, so I'm going to let Dr. Arrington say hello to you.
You know, Dr. A needs to work on his social skills, because I used to have better pickup lines for girls when I was a naval aviator. I saw her walking towards me, and I stopped her, and I said, I just noticed you're a semi-attractive woman. And I held my hand out.
Like a lead balloon. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, she wasn't sure if she should shake my hand or not. But then I complimented her shoes, and she said, "Okay, you're okay."
Yeah, she's actually a very attractive woman, but and with a wonderful radio show.
Thank you.
I really love your radio show.
Thank you very much.
And I
Very
haven't had
kind of
the
you.
chance to read your book.
Yeah.
That you wrote with Kevin, but why don't you pitch that as we get started?
Which book? I didn't write a book with Kevin. He wrote a book called True Strength. I did write chapters. Actually, I wrote chapters in the book. So I suppose, yeah, you could say.
Right. Yes.
So he wrote a book called True Strength, which is details. He nearly died right before we got married. He had 3 strokes. And it took him about 3 years to recover. And then it took several years before my cajoling and my harping and my nagging got him to sit down and write the book of his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a book. It's a love story. My chapters, of course, are the best chapters in the book because they're about our relationship.
Of course they are.
But it's a story of overcoming incredible odds. Actually, the medical community didn't give him much hope. And so it's just a story of recovery. It's a great book for people who are in the midst of great trials or have undergone great trial and need some uplifting message to pull them through.
And that it is on my must-read list.
Oh, good.
Definitely.
Well, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's an audiobook also. We recorded the audiobook, which I'm very proud of.
Probably more likely that I'll listen to
I've started listening to a lot of audiobooks. I enjoy it, and now that the kids are older, I find I'm driving more by myself in the car, which gives me the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And I'm a horrible multitasker. I have to be doing more than one thing. It bugs me if I'm only doing one thing.
That's a female thing. It's something women do.
Yeah. I'm having a tough time because yesterday I sat down to do my show, and somebody came by and spilled milk on my computer and fried my computer. I actually got a little tiny screwdriver today and took it apart to see if I could maybe, I don't know, fix it.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
And that didn't work.
No.
So
for the 5 listeners that listen to Office Hours with Dr. A, you know I have several mantra sayings. One of them is "Let freedom ring, God help us." Now, I happen to know that Sam is a conservative woman and she's a Christian woman. And I know that those go together when you're making, political issues. What do you think about that? We need to get back to our Christian roots, or what? How would you comment on that?
Okay, so one of the problems that I have with Trump, and I haven't chosen a candidate, and I don't mean I'm not here to bash Trump, but
oh no, we do that
he
a lot.
He comes out and he says he wants to make America great again. And he's been asked, I've seen in interviews, what is it that makes America great? And he cannot, for the life of him, express really, truly what it is that makes America great. And the thing that makes America great is our Judeo-Christian heritage, which gives us our freedom. There is not another ideology in the world that espouses freedom like the Judeo-Christian, like Judeo-Christianity, I should say. Secularism does not espouse freedom.
No.
Islam does not espouse freedom. Did you know that on Wikipedia, do you know what the 3rd largest religion in the world is? Listed as on Wikipedia, secularism. Isn't that interesting?
No way.
It's listed as secularism, atheism, and agnosticism. But there is no tenet of that religion that espouses freedom.
And
as we know, freedom engenders capitalism. It informs everything, and that is the engine that drives America.
Absolutely. This is something that you talk about on your show a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're constantly talking about that on your show. So. And it definitely agree with that. And you've done, I have heard you do shows and talk a lot about the difference between Islam and Christianity from that perspective, and have some guests on your show as well that talk about the lack of freedom and in Islam. And Dr. Arrington is fond of using the word Islamo-communism because he believes, and I think you would probably agree with this, that Islam is not so much a religion as it is an ideology.
Sure, it's a totalitarian ideology.
That's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hiding behind the guise of religion because that is useful for them to promote it within the United States because we have this so-called freedom of religion. But when a religion tells you something that is antithetical to the Constitution and antithetical to freedom, I don't know how much honor we can give it.
Liberalism has become a totalitarian ideology and religion combined in the two.
Sure.
Exactly.
I think so. And communism was, if secularism and atheism and agnosticism is the third largest religion in the world, then communism could certainly be considered as much a religion as it is an ideology, because it is based in atheism and agnosticism.
Communism is a political ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one of the tenets of communism is no religion.
Mm-hmm.
Which is secularism.
Exactly.
And so under communism, you would have to put secularism in. Yeah. And that's why one of the first things that the communists do is they outlaw the church.
That's right. They want to become the religion of whatever.
They're the belief system.
Yes, they are the belief system.
Dr. Ray knows a little bit about this subject you were talking about, communism. My doctoral dissertation was on it. Okay.
That's right.
And I'm going to teach Sam something right now. She doesn't already know
you
it.
think you can teach Sam something?
I'm going to give it a shot. I know she's very, very smart, semi-attractive.
Waiting with bated breath.
Communism only works in two places. It works in the faculty lounge where poorly educated people dream of it, and it works in hell where the condemned already have it.
Yeah.
It only worked in the Soviet Union for 74 years, if you want to call it worked, because they held the population at the brunt end of a gun.
Sure. If you want to call standing in line for one size of underwear working, sure.
Well, and you know, you had to, Stalin, when he did his economic plan, went to the factories and killed every fifth guy on the line. That certainly motivated the other four standing next to them to do a good job. But communism doesn't ever work. Yeah. And right now, on the universities, because we're going to do a show on this coming in the future, cultural Marxism, and they use this primary weapon in their arsenal, political correctness, which is a bunch of crap. But our students are being inundated with it from kindergarten all the way up. Political correctness, okay? And it's all of this cultural Marxists trying to destroy this nation, trying to make us hate our upbringing, trying to make us hate capitalism, the Constitution, democratic principles, our republic, so that we can fall from that vine and be ripe for a revolution. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of young people. I talk to people everywhere, on planes or what have you, and the young people that I speak to, they often ask me, so what's so bad about socialism? I don't get it. I think socialism's pretty good. I kind of like Bernie. I like the idea of free school, etc. And I say to them, the problem is this: you've been indoctrinated. You have been taught that socialism is grandpa with candy, and that capitalism is the moneybags guy from the Monopoly board with dollar signs in his eyes. And they look at me and they kind of nod and they go, yeah, actually that's sort of what I think about it. And I say, well, they're both wrong, and I can prove it to you. Capitalism, you have everything that you have today. You must thank capitalism for. Socialism provided none of this.
She used the term indoctrinated.
Socialism Bernie only talks about how to divide the pie. He never talks about how to bake the pie. How to make the pie.
Well put.
It's that simple.
Yeah. She used the term indoctrinated. You like the term brainwashed. I have a term for this as a professor, and some people complain about it. I'm going to say it anyway. These kids, their minds are being stolen from them. Their brains are being, indoctrinated. I call it mind rape. Now, some of my people get mad at me. I know there's a situation where they maybe have been associated with that crime of rape, and it touched a raw nerve. I want it to touch a raw nerve because that's what's happening to our kids today. They're being mind raped.
Well, I think
I'll give you a better one.
Yes, ma'am.
Grooming. They're being groomed. Yeah. And do you know about human trafficking grooming?
Yes.
So they take a young girl, and you approach her and you offer her nice things and you make friends with her and you compliment her and you tell her good things and you encourage her to do the right thing for a time until you get her friendship, and then you start to take control over her, and then you turn her and you make her date people and turn tricks and you groom. And that's what they're doing to our children right now. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a homeschooler. And I advocate for homeschooling, and what we are. You've got
three kids.
Three.
Okay.
And what we're doing to our children in our public schools today is an outrage. I call it abuse. I call it child abuse, because when you lie to a child, you're abusing them.
Yep.
They will grow up, they will get into the real world, and pretty soon they'll realize that life is not fair in the way that they've been taught that life has to be fair.
Another one of my mantra sayings is speak the truth and then endure the consequences, and I do it all the time. And
Sam.
I spoke the truth. Well, okay, I was teasing her. She's not semi-attractive. For you out there listening, she's not semi-attractive. She's very intelligent, beautiful woman, okay? And she's smart, very intelligent. I like that. I like listening to what she has to say. She's educating Dr. A.
I don't listen to people's shows unless they're smart.
Do you listen to my show? Oh, you produce my show. I forgot.
She doesn't have a choice but to listen.
I know,
but there is a mute button.
I don't have a choice, but I do listen to Sam's show on a regular basis.
You know, when I teach at the universities, I introduce myself, and then I turn around to the board, Sam, and I write this on the board. Truth changes. And then I turn around in my class, they look at me like, what's wrong with you? Truth changes because it's subject to human interpretation. Indoctrination, what you just said. And like at one point, 1491, the truth was the earth was flat. We know that's not true, but it was considered the truth then. So that's what's happening right now. The grooming, whatever term, adjective you want to use, to take away our children's minds is happening right now.
I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree. The truth is immutable. The truth doesn't change.
God's truth doesn't change, but truth is subject to human interpretation. If you were alive in 1491, you would have been told that the earth is flat. You probably would have believed that, which was a lie, but they touted it as a truth.
Yes, but she's challenging me.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's my point, is they're telling children lies right now. Global warming is a lie.
Absolutely.
And the one thing, the one truth that we know is that science changes.
That's the difference
I like
right
that.
there. The truth stays the same, but science changes, and that was science. The earth was flat, but the earth wasn't flat.
What's the difference if I think it's true, in my mind it's the truth? That's what Goebbels taught the Nazis. If you say a lie over and over again, then they suddenly believe it to be the truth.
And I think I remember you having a global warming expert on your show and actually saying that same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do tend to repeat myself. Because
No,
the
but it's
truth
really
doesn't
good.
change.
No, but science does. The truth doesn't change, but science does.
Right.
Right, absolutely.
Dr. A just got owned right here on radio.
I know.
No.
Sam Zorbo owns you,
It's
Dr. A.
semantics. It's semantics.
Well, it is kind
It
of,
is.
but it was a really, really, really good point. It's the truth doesn't change.
It's dangerous to say the truth changes.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous proposition.
In people's minds, the truth
Goethe said,
changes.
Goethe said the truth is a very narrow path.
And
Stupidity, a never-ending
And don't
jungle.
you love it when your younger siblings actually teach you something? And my little sister told me is truth is truth.
Truth is truth.
Truth is truth.
Yes.
It always is. It always will be. And it's recognizable. If you look hard enough, you think hard enough, you know the truth when you see it.
Something that we all should do when we're on the air is what I try to do with my students is I don't want to put my brain into their heads. What I want to make them do is to think and use the analytical part of their brain that, very few people want to use because it requires work. I want them to think. I want them to be exposed to the truth despite what they've been told by the lefties, and then come to their own decision. How are we going to reach more people? Is it one person at a time, Sam, that we can reach?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's really the only way to do it. It's very difficult to reach a whole group of people because of exactly your point is that for a lot of people the truth is personal. It's sort of their personal interpretation. It's difficult to get across to people, and people don't want to change. They don't want to modify their interpretation of things.
Despite what the air boss said, she just agreed with me in a roundabout. Would you agree with that? She just agreed with me. So that's what she said.
I think you agreed with her, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to say I think it was more the other way around.
but you know what?
I'm going to have to start listening to the Sam Sorbo show.
That's my own personal truth is that you agreed with her.
You did say truth is relative and it changes, so
Yeah.
Truth changes, folks. Trust me in this one subject. Trust Dr. A in this one subject.
Right.
You know what? I want to thank Sam for being so gracious to sit down with us and put up with my abuse.
Thank you for having me.
She wanted to go listen to Beck, I think.
Beck's starting in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I'm trying
Before you go, why don't you go ahead and, just in case you've got folks that may be hearing you for the first time, tell them where they can interact with you, where your show is, all that fun stuff.
So go to samsorbo.com, or you can download the app for The Sam Sorbo Show. And it is called The Sam Sorbo Show. I air 9 to noon weekdays, 9 to noon Eastern, every day, 5 days a week. And samsorbo.com, and you can follow me on Facebook at the official Sam Sorbo Facebook page, and on Twitter at The Sam Sorbo Show.
And I highly recommend it. Definitely.
Me too. I do too.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites, and it actually might be my favorite.
Thank you very much for sitting down with us, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Never met you before, so it was an honor.
Lovely to meet you too.
Nice to meet you as well.
I acted like a total fangirl when he told me that. Oh, I've got Sam Sorbo. I said,
It's awesome. The doctor is in.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming by, Sam.
All right, folks, you are listening to America Off the Rails, the Roundhouse edition right here at CPAC 2016. We have Mr. Stephen Hamilton, who just came back from the straw poll results. He's going to go ahead and share those with us right now, live on the air.
They had a huge build-up, so this is cool. We just completed the straw poll. They had the huge build-up. We actually went through it in reverse. I don't know, as media, we actually weren't able to take the straw poll.
No.
But I was able to see some of the Senate. They asked a lot of different questions, not just, who you're voting for president, but obviously they asked a lot of questions about what was most important to you, economics, et cetera, et cetera. But I will go ahead and start it in reverse here. And for those of you that are wondering, the straw poll this year was won by none other than Ted Cruz.
Woohoo!
40%.
Oh, nice.
40%.
Yeah, you got 40% of the vote. Rubio came in second at 30, and Trump came in third at 15.
This is what happens when you don't show up at CPAC, folks.
Yeah. Now, by the way, so if we want to put this in
voting
perspective,
was done before they knew he wasn't going to show up.
a lot of it was done. Obviously, this has been going on for several days.
Sure enough, I kind of forgot about that, so never mind.
Yep, and something else to take
I sit corrected.
If you want to see what's going on right now, so you look at Kansas, they've got about 25% of the vote in right this second, and Cruz is nearing the 50% mark in Kansas today. Now,
see, I called it because I told everybody that up until now, all the primaries that Trump's been winning have been open.
Right.
So there have been people crossing the Democratic line over to Republican to shift his numbers.
Correlates very closely too in some states.
And now that he's going into the closed primaries, he's getting things handed to him in an order he didn't expect.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why, and I was here, folks. I was here for the watch party. This was an anti-Trump environment from the jump, from the minute I sat down, and he knew it. He had folks on the ground, and instead of coming in and doing what a leader would do and trying to turn the crowd, he turned tail and ran. Now, you tell me how somebody like that is supposed to be able to run the country. Anyway, enough with my editorializing back here.
It's viable.
That's what we're here for.
We're conservatives here. We're not half Democrats deciding we're going to vote in a Republican primary. A couple of other questions that they asked. What would be a deal breaker for you? This was kind of interesting. The actual 38% said expanding Medicaid to basically backfill Obamacare, which was pretty interesting. A few more results there. That was kind of the biggest one on that one. Let's see. What else did they have? A couple more interesting. Most important issue for president, right? What's your... I'm sorry, I'm using my phone and I'm screwing it up. What's the most important economic issues were the primary one this year? And to just give you guys an idea of what was on the survey, it was economic, national security, restoring humility.
Economics came in over national security?
Actually, economics came in at 49%, national security at 26%.
So despite what Trump likes to tell everybody, not everybody's supporting his wall, obviously.
Well, and there's an interesting aspect of this is that was one of the questions, I believe, that was one of the questions you could answer more than one on. So what it is everybody answered, obviously, economics, and then people probably answered one of the other ones as well, right?
Was the economy stupid?
Yeah, it's the economy stupid.
And we're also showing Cruz at about almost 50% in Maine and Trump at 35%.
Okay, now I have come to CPAC for, let's see, this is my fourth CPAC I've been to in the last 5 years.
Is this the first time one of the polls hasn't won it?
Well, and I was about to comment on that. So there was a very interesting dynamic because one of the questions on there was, what would you consider yourself, conservative, libertarian? What did I say? It was a classic Reagan conservative, a libertarian conservative, or a populist conservative. This year, 66% answered a classic Reagan conservative. Now, I've been coming to CPAC a long time, okay? That has not been...
It's about double, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about double what it has been in time past. Now, I think that this is not some death nail. You can't take CPAC and say this is death nail in the coffin to libertarians, the libertarian movement. I think the libertarian movement certainly had its place in saying bring visibility to big government GOP, non-conservative GOP, and have driven that a little bit. I think it's kind of starting to mellow out more than anything. Is probably a better way to look at it. Say that's now, okay, the big splash of libertarianism, the big splash of the Tea Party, things like that. Now they're kind of mellowing out, and people are going, well, that's basically what I am. I'm basically this Reagan conservative. I have some libertarian leanings. I have some Tea Party ideals and things like that, and we're finding this kind of middle layer here that I think is where Cruz is being empowered by. People are looking back to character a bit more, looking back to moral foundations a bit more, back to still limited government, but with some version of reality to back that up.
Now, go ahead.
No, you first.
Okay. So anyway, I was going to say, I actually have a thought to that. I think that honestly, especially since this is one of the first times we've seen that shift, I think it's one of the few things that we might actually be able to credit Trump with, because I think he has shocked the base so drastically that they realized that they are nowhere near going to relate to that guy. And when they look back, the closest relation point anybody has is really Reagan. How close am I to the beliefs that Reagan had? I personally, Reagan, yes, I'm young. I'm about to be 43. But Reagan was a hero of mine. I remember sitting in a second grade classroom watching on TV the day that he was shot. From that moment, that man was a hero of mine.
So and I think it's to that point also, I think it's a lot about education. I think that Trump is forcing people to educate themselves about what conservative values are, and looking at Reagan as that standard bearer of conservative values, and knowing that, or learning that, his most famous statement ever was, the scariest words in the English language are, I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help. Right?
I got a great analogy. When Hammy was speaking, this is what it made me think of. And, the best theories are the ones that are down to the bottom level so everybody can understand it. When he was speaking, it was almost, I was saying to myself, it's almost like I broke up with my girlfriend for whatever reason, and I went to another girlfriend or two. And then suddenly after a while, it's like, I don't like what I have here. I want to go back to what I did have. I like the last girlfriend I had, last values, last set of the principles, and that's what's happening right now. Right. And I think Trump is sort of accelerating that. He has wrested the control of the party, the Republican Party, away from the members that are elected, the organization, the leadership, given control to the grassroots Republicans. Now they're free to go in whichever direction they want to. They sort of were gravitating towards Trump because of all the populist emotion, but now they're saying, wait a minute, I don't want to continue that. He's no different than the guy that's the Islamo-communists in the White House right now. I've got to go back to the Reagan principles, that last girlfriend I had, and who is that candidate? That's Ted Cruz. And
the last best girlfriend that we had was Ronald Reagan.
Oh, absolutely.
She was the best girlfriend ever.
Can I say something? On Tuesday when I voted, right before we came out here, what was it? Yeah, it was Tuesday. There's a local radio station that I listen to almost every single day. On the drive home, there was a segment for almost an hour. He took caller after caller after caller. And up until that moment, everybody thought Trump was going to win Oklahoma. He took 10 callers. This is regular terrestrial radio, so you're talking basically 25 minutes of talking, 20 minutes of commercials, 5 minutes of other stuff, and then 15 minutes of whatever else they want to throw in the middle. But for the time that he was actually on the air taking the callers, he took 10 callers. 9 of them voted for Cruz. 1 of them voted for Rubio. Out of 10 callers, nobody that he talked to voted for Trump. Not only that, but 7 out of the 9 people that he listened to used almost the exact same phrasing. Since 1998, I have felt like I've had to hold my nose and pull for whoever was the nominee. Right. This was the first time since that time that I have been able to pull the lever for someone and actually believe that they believe the way that I do.
Yeah, and those were Cruz supporters.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rick Robinson, who I call the air boss, hit on something also in the electoral dynamic. A lot of these states that Mr. Trump has won have been crossover states where You could go in and be a Democrat, register and vote for whoever you want. I think the Democrats would like to have, if she wins, Mrs. Clinton run against Mr. Trump. They are afraid of running against Cruz because I think they realize that would be a landslide victory for the Republicans.
It's a disaster for the Republican Party, and I think that they realize it very, very clearly. I think that he'd be a disaster, and they've seen, what would the commercials be? They'd be about eminent domain. They'd be about him kicking people out of their homes. It would be a disaster for the Republican Party to have him as a candidate. And I think that they know that very well, and I think people are starting to realize it, which is why Kansas now it's 50-24, Cruz over Trump, and in Maine it's 50-35.
But in the beginning, in this whole thing that's been going on for 6 or 7 months, you guys asked me, Dr. A, in your analytical opinion, would you think that Trump has value? And I told you, yes, he does. I said, I don't think he's eventually going to win the nomination. I think what his value is that he forces all the other candidates on both sides, Democrat or Republican, of the political continuum, to actually answer questions that they'd rather not answer because they'd rather just give vague responses. He's actually forcing them to answer these questions. Yes, some of it is Barnum and Bailey circus. I understand that, but he does have value in this campaign. I don't think he's going to win the nomination. I think it's eventually going to be Cruz.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news right here on WNJC 1360 AM, live from CPAC. We have it in from Decision Desk AQ. They have just called Kansas for Cruz, and from so yet again,
winners take all states.
Only if you're over 50. Only if you get a greater than 50%.
50 plus 1.
I'm showing him at 50.
So he's somewhere around there. So you got to get 50.1, and it's a winner take all. Otherwise, if you look at Texas as well, the breakdown there ended up really going in his favor big time. He ended up taking 99 plus. There were still 20 floating around someplace. I think you are seeing a turn here. You're seeing a definite. I think seriousness. I said this a couple of months ago. I said, you're going to see people that get excited about Trump. They think this is the greatest thing. It's the big shakeup, just as Randy was saying a minute ago. Eventually, people wake up though, and they go, "Oh, enough of that." Yeah, we've heard that 20 times. Thank you for saying huge. Thank you for everything else. That's great. The shock factor's gone. Now I'm really thinking of settling down and saying, okay, who am I going to go with here? Who am I really going to trust to run this country? Who's going to represent the conservative ideas?
Some of it was he said some scary stuff in the last debate. I mean,
he really
literally sat there, and when they started, the last one of the things that stood out to me was when he was standing up there in front of America and TV around the world at this point. And basically, when they called him out and said, you're talking about attacking the families of terrorists, and that would not be a legal order. And his only answer is, well, trust me, they'll listen to me.
Hey, can I throw a crazy tinfoil thing out here?
Yeah, but can I throw a JD comment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's great to date a stripper, but you don't want to marry one.
Here, how often have we sat here and said, how many more things can Trump say before people go, enough is enough? And really, he never has. Every time he says something that's totally outlandish, and all the pundits have said, that's it, he's going to fall off the side, and we can't put Humpty back together again. Humpty does just fine, right? Now, all of a sudden, you're starting to see a slow shift. It's not the, he said this, boom, he's done, he's gone. No, you're starting to see the slow shift away. And I think it's going to continue. But I think it is finally reaching that point where it's no longer cool and, edgy to say something really outlandish. But I've got a question. Okay, here's my tinfoil. Does anybody else here wonder if Trump's just been playing this the entire time and going, what's the wackiest thing I can say to these idiots and they'll still vote for me?
Yes.
He's been off the record from, what was it, the Times, basically stating that was basically exactly what he was doing, is telling everybody he wanted to hear.
How crazy can I get? And these idiots will still elect me.
Yes, I've been thinking that for a long time, actually.
It's kind of like a sushi chef. They're drinking the hot wine and eating the raw fish. I can't believe it.
One of the times I actually noticed that there might have been a shift was when I came up with this crazy idea of taking the "Make America Great Again" hashtag and turning it into "Make America Sane Again," and it actually caught on. I mean, little old me, I've got like 3,000 Twitter followers right now. By the time it was all said and done, it was in like 5 different groups, and it was all over the place. It even got to the point where it will still auto-populate on Twitter once you get past the G, which means at some point it was up there. It never got to the point where it was trending, but it was at least in the algorithm enough that it was starting to be noticed. And there are people around here that have been saying that. Like, when Trump would say something, somebody would yell that out, and I was like, holy crap, that was
And
my
the John
idea.
Oliver video, if you haven't seen it, I think is the greatest thing. And he's not a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's actually kind of a lefty, but he made a Trump video, which is dead on, and it's about a 15 or 20-minute video. I think he calls it Make Trump Drump Again. And, yeah, and it is fabulous. And I think he probably did. This liberal did the Republican Party the biggest favor that anyone has done by making that video, and it's gone viral.
So here's my game for the rest of the day. I'm going to be watching these. I'm going to split in a few minutes. By the way, I'm going to turn the microphone back over to you, your other excellent host. Actually, your host. I'm just the guest. And head on out. But my thing is to watch. I want to see the impact. This actually seems to be a massive level of momentum for Cruz right this second. I am surprised that it's Trump coming in second and Rubio coming in third, and Rubio coming in third with some really bad numbers. I'm going to be interested to see, can Cruz pass that 50% mark? You get the 50.1, you get all of them. Mm-hmm. You win, it's the moneymaker.
Yes.
And the other one is Rubio going to wait? If Rubio loses everything today, especially if by any chance Cruz can get past that 50.1, is there a point where Rubio says it's not worth waiting to Florida? Is there a point where the establishment jumps up board and says, Cruz, it's not worth waiting to Florida? You're a man. You're my man, Blue. But you got to get out.
I'll make a prediction, and I actually told Stacey this morning. When Trump starts to lose the states that are closed primaries, that he will withdraw from the race because Trump doesn't do anything that he doesn't believe wholeheartedly that he will win. If he sees himself starting to lose, he's out because he doesn't want to be a loser.
Yep. Right, well, I am going to get out of you guys' hair. Thanks a lot for having me on. Hey, thanks for having me on Friday as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Enjoyed it. And good luck to the rest of you. And Randy, good to see you again.
Yeah, we're going to close out with the three of us are going to close out the show. Thanks, Hannah.
Hey, thanks a lot. See you guys later.
All right, so you are listening, folks, to America Off the Rails right here at CPAC 2016 live from WNJC 1360 AM out of Philadelphia. We are a proud member of the Conservative Commandos radio network here. Now, I want to do something we hadn't been able to do yet since we do have a lull in the guests for the moment. I just want to let everybody know that at this point, if you are listening, and you're listening by radio or app or computer, however you listen, if you ever find yourself away from any of those options, you do have another one that we don't always talk about here. You can actually listen by phone by calling 832-999 1199. The shows that are live can go with you anywhere during our 12 to 6 block, and then once that block is over, those shows for the day will repeat over and over and over again until we go live again. So if you miss it or you don't have any other way to catch the podcast, make sure you're using that phone number and just keep calling in until you hear the one you want, because you'll catch it again eventually. All right, so at this point, folks, Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where the newsmakers go to be heard. We are live right here from CPAC 2016 out in Maryland at the Gaylord.
And watching the Decision Desk, in case you're not watching the Decision Desk, we're watching it for you. And Cruz's numbers in Kansas are climbing. And it looks like to me
is he gonna get
he's
there?
Getting closer and closer to 50%. So
I'm hoping he gets that 51.
I know, really. He can get over 50%. He can get all of those delegates, and we will all be doing a happy dance.
So since you are listening to radio, I'm sure every once in a while the applause is bleeding over. We are sitting right across from the Potomac A and B area where they have Glenn Beck on stage right now. So the applause does get a little loud from time to time. Don't worry, it's nothing crazy.
The audience is loving Glenn Beck.
Don't they always, though?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they missed Trump today at all.
No, I really don't think they did.
No, actually, there were some pretty interesting things that happened. Somebody posted a sign, Dear Mr. Trump, thanks for nothing. Signed, conservatives. Signed, real conservatives.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it probably had the word real in there somewhere.
Yes, it did. It said signed, real conservatives. And that was posted somewhere around here at CPAC.
But that's the crazy thing, though. I mean, I know people that at least up until this election cycle, I would have believed were true conservatives. And as soon as he came on the scene, they just sold all of their principles out for a W, and I don't understand that.
I think that it proves that anyone can be fooled by anything, and conservatives included. So I think that they are tired of losing. I think that there's been several elections in the past that, especially 2012. I mean, let's be honest. We really thought that was that was the Republican election, and I say our, not being an independent, but that was the conservative election.
Why did we lose that election, Lynch?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I don't want to. You go ahead.
Yes. There's always never just one reason. But if you had to pick the most probable cause why we lost that 2012 election, what would it be?
You
Squishy.
Well, the last debate they
candidate.
had, Mr. Romney basically backed off of Mr. Obama on Benghazi and the rest of those foreign policy issues. I think his political consultants, who I think should be dragged out in the middle of the street and gunned down like dogs, they gave him bad advice. He should have vehemently attacked Benghazi and the sitting president of the United States. If he had done that, I think he'd be president right now. But he didn't do that. He backed off and he let him off the hook.
Especially on the Cold War foreign policy thing, because that was an open door waiting to be walked through.
Was he right about that? You know he was right about that.
Right about that, and I've said it since then, and I've said it when we were on the air. He should have picked up the phone and taken the freaking call.
Exactly.
If the 80s were calling with their foreign policy back, because right now he could use it.
Exactly.
Right, Rick?
Exactly. And I actually said as much around that same time. Actually, one of my most responded to clips was a deal that I put together shortly after all of this blew up in Obama's face, and I actually pieced together the parts of Russia invading the Ukraine and Sarah Palin saying that Romney was right, and then I put in front of that the bit about Obama making fun of Romney about the 80s foreign policy thing. And I said, look at everything that's happened since then. Romney was right.
And Sarah can see Russia from her house.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, in the last couple of years, I've lost a lot of respect for Miss Palin, but she was at least right in that one aspect when she pointed that out. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to think about, because if you go back to those debates, there were 2 or 3 points where if his campaign strategist would have just been up front with him, he could have mopped the floor with him between second and third debates, because they caught Obama in at least 2 different lies, if I remember right, and they didn't capitalize on either one of them. And I even remember, even little old me, I shot a note off to the folks that are running the campaign, and I actually got a response. I didn't expect one, but I got one. They told me that they were going to leave those things alone, even though they knew them to be untruths, because they had elected to take the high road.
Well, and I'm ashamed to say that I know one of the communications people that were working on that campaign, and I would never in a million years believe that she would go for that, and she did, and I was really disappointed.
We've just had somebody sit down here at the table, our round table, WNJC, that as a newcomer to radio, and he doesn't want to even talk. He teaches me.
He's a little worn out.
JD is worn out, but he teaches me about intellectual humor, and I listen to their show. It's Bloody Marys and Broad Sheets, right? Did I get that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you got it right.
It's before us on K98 on Sunday.
I listen to both of them.
They're at 11 and we're at noon. K98.com. K98talk.org.
There we go.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's confusing.
Okay, know your home station, Lou.
It's not your fault. I have a business partner who can't seem to figure out what he's going to do with the other website. And so
we've got a guest that's on his way down right now, and you're going to the listening audience is going to enjoy this. His name is Sergeant Retired Jonathan Lubecki. I met him yesterday, and he started telling me his story, and I just was enthralled. I stopped everything I was doing. I listened to this young man for probably 30 minutes, and then I invited him, if he would grace the show, come down and talk to us about what he's gone through. He Army Sergeant, and he's been to Afghanistan, and I guess we're on fire, in Iraq, and came back with PTSD, which a lot of our young men and women do. And he actually told me that he has gone through some of the therapy, the medication, and he himself tried to commit suicide 3 times. He pulled back his sleeve and showed me the razor marks. It took my breath away. And now he has got his own little business where he is a defense counselor and talks to some of these young men and women about this. And we're going to have Dr. Michael Ward on our show probably in a few weeks, and they've got some new treatments for these guys. One of them is hyperbaric oxygen treatments, where they put them in an oxygen chamber. Actually, it's an altitude chamber. They take them down to like 1.5 atmospheres below sea level, and then they give them 100% oxygen. It seems to be working out pretty well, and what we want is to take care of these men. I am a veteran myself, 20 years in the Navy, and I hear these statistics that 22 of these young men and women, the veterans, are dying every day, whether that's from suicide or waiting on the VA list. And I am appalled by that. I don't want that to happen. We need to take care of these young men and women. And sitting down right now with us is Sergeant Jonathan Lubecki, and we're going to have him introduce himself. Jonathan, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, first off, I want to apologize for being late. I went over to the airbase and got stuck a little bit. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, 95 to 99. Had a blast. Was a load master on C-130s. And got out. I went into the Army after watching the towers fall, and spent 8 years in the Army. Was medically retired in 2009 due to injuries. Served in Iraq 05-06. Came back with a head injury, PTSD, some physical injuries, had a couple back surgeries, stuff like that. Got into politics because I needed a new direction in life after coming back, and one, helping veterans I find very cathartic. It's very good for my mental health, and I've had a lot of mental health issues over the years. And I realized, I kind of got a bill passed by accident, which I know nobody ever says, but it's actually very true in my case. And I realized that, I could help a veteran here and a veteran there, and over my lifetime probably help, 1,000, 1,500 veterans, or I can pass a bill and help hundreds of thousands or millions of veterans. So I started getting involved in politics, lobbying for veterans legislation, writing veterans legislation in North Carolina, South Carolina, up on the Hill. Started working for campaigns, advising candidates on veterans issues, helping craft their veterans message, so that if they got elected, they do the right thing.
So part of what he does, folks, is he actually will train the candidates and the ones that actually get elected on how they can best deal with and maybe pass public policy to help our veterans. And we have veterans that are dying every single day. When I hear these statistics, I pick up the phone, I call my squadron mates. Some of them are admirals in the Pentagon, some of them just recently retired and now working in D.C. for some of the contractors. And I call them and I say, I'm just appalled by this. We're losing our brothers and sisters. And what can we do to stop this? And what Jonathan is doing is helping to educate our political class so that they understand what's going on, and they can then pass the right type of public policy to get these people, these men and women, the help that they deserve and they need. We sent these men and women into combat, and we filled their heads up full of all these different ideas. And when they come back and they have any kind of injury, it's our responsibility as the people, because they are out there protecting our liberty and protecting the longevity of the United States of America as a free country. We have the responsibility, everybody out there, to protect these people from these injuries and to bring them back to a good state of health, no matter how that occurs, whether it's at the VA, which we know is flawed, tremendously flawed. I've been part of the VA myself, or letting them go to any doctor that they wish and have the people pick up the tab. I just mentioned that to a couple of these politicians I've seen walking around here who are eventually going to come on the show with us, but that's something I think we should do. They should be able to go to anybody, and the people pick up the tab.
Oh, I agree completely, and we all know and agree the VA needs a massive overhaul. But one of the things that I like to tell a lot of people is, when you talk about a complete overhaul of a federal department, the last time that happened was the creation of DHS 16 years ago or 15 years ago, and that was a nightmare. So people think it's too big a task to tackle, but here's the thing. You don't have to do it all at once. That would be great if we could. But you can do little changes. There's a lot of little things. I actually heard an amendment introduced on the Senate floor just the other day when I was over at the Russell Office Building that would allow all veterans, regardless of discharge, to receive mental health and substance abuse treatment at the VA, which, I've that issue right there actually is the reason I got into politics, is wanting to pass that. And I actually had nothing to do with that. You know, when I heard it, I almost broke down in tears in a senator's office. But, you know, because we've got guys that come back with PTSD, TBI, and then they get discharged for misconduct because they get a DUI or they have other issues that are related to PTSD because they're self-medicating. And the problem is they end up getting a general discharge or another non-honorable discharge, and then they don't get any services. So you've got guys that come back with mental health issues, they get kicked out for those mental health issues, and then they don't get the help that they need. You know, as I was telling you yesterday, you know, I've been very public about this. I didn't talk about it for a long time, but I've got a total of 5 suicide attempts. I'm very fortunate that I'm here. And, you know, that's part of the reason I talk about it. Veterans don't talk about it enough. So people just see a number in an article, and it's not real. When a politician looks at someone in the face that says, yeah, you know, on Christmas Eve 2006, after I came back from Iraq, I went to a church and was turned away. I went to a Army hospital and was sent home. And so I sat down with a bottle of vodka and a Beretta 9mm. I drank a bottle of vodka and I chambered around, put the gun to my head, and pulled the trigger. The gun malfunctioned. It's the only reason I'm here. And I don't take lightly that 22 of my brothers and sisters a day aren't as lucky as I was. You know, they were buried under a flag of a country they loved. And they went over knowing, you know, when they got on a plane, whether it be for Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, they knew that they may die. And it was a cost they were willing to accept, but they never realized it'd be by their own hand on U.S. soil far from the battlefield. And I personally find it a national disgrace that we have this going on. And nobody seems to care, except veterans. And I've kind of tried to make it my mission to talk to people. I've met all the candidates. Most of the candidates actually, you know, have taken the time to talk to me. And I'm not really anybody special, you know, especially with high profile candidates. But I am a veteran, and I do try to leverage that to talk to them. And except for 2, actually, they've all been willing to stop. Some for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, which is fine. Jeb Bush actually sat for 3 hours. Senator Rand Paul put off everything he was doing, put off a press conference and talked to me for 30 minutes.
Let Dr. Ray just set the record straight here. Jonathan is very special to me, and when he told me this story yesterday, it just took me by surprise and grabbed me, you know, where it shouldn't have grabbed me, and I just was listening to him. I said, we got to have this guy on the show. The other thing that you were talking about, and I got to tell you this, you know, maybe don't know this. Politicians don't care about you or me. They don't care about, they want you to think they care about you. All they care about is themselves and their power. Trust me in this, trust Dr. Ray in this one subject. They don't really care. And the bureaucracies, they don't care about you either.
Nope.
You're just a number to them. If they can get something from you, then they care for a limited amount of time. But when you get to the big picture, they don't care about you.
Well, and here's the interesting thing. You know, I've had a lot of politicians that I've talked to that hear my story, and they're like, all right, I want to get involved. I want to help you. And I'm like, don't help me. Help all of us. You know, the fact that I had, you know, that I had the guts to walk up to you and as a politician and tell my story, yeah, you may want to help me, but that doesn't help my brothers and sisters. I was very, very, very fortunate. There's a new treatment for PTSD. It's in clinical trials. I was part of it down in South Carolina. It's 3 treatments, 6 weeks apart.
What's it called?
It's psychotherapy under the influence of MDMA, which is known as ecstasy. And less than 100 veterans have gone through this treatment, and every one of them have had 40 to 60% reduction in all symptoms. For me personally, it's a 50% reduction in symptoms. My suicidal ideology is nearly gone. You know, going from spending pretty much every moment of every day wanting to die to actually wanting to live is miraculous. And, you know, hopefully it will be. I was actually on the Hill the other day talking to senators about this, hoping that we can try and push for some FDA approval of this treatment. You know, it's not like a lot of the other controversial treatments like medical marijuana where people are worried, that somebody's going to get the meds or whatever. This is done in a clinical setting.
But MDMA is a DEA. It is still Schedule 1, and it is still a DEA classified drug, so it could be
correct.
Really it still could be difficult. So your
DEA,
work on the Hill is going to be very important there.
Well, for whatever reason, this is actually a DEA and FDA approved research study.
Excellent.
That's the path they want to go. One of the big questions, honestly, is do they want to reschedule MDMA or do they want to carve an exception to the Schedule 1 for one specific treatment?
You're more likely to get the exception, but whichever one works.
Whichever one works, because, it really is miraculous. You saw the crowds here at CPAC. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't gone through the treatments.
That's amazing. That's great.
Last year was my first year at CPAC. I completed the treatments a year ago. And, I can't, there's two people down in Charleston that have spearheaded this research, both here in the U.S. and they've been training people overseas, Michael and Annie Mithoff. And if you look up MDMA, PTSD on Google, that's the names you'll see. And I owe them my life, without question. When I was out in Iowa with Senator Paul's campaign, everything was crazy. It was a week before the caucuses. We were doing 5-6 events a day, all over Iowa and stuff. In between some of the events, I called them and thanked them because I wouldn't have been doing it. I wouldn't be able to make the difference I'm making if it weren't for that. I think that when they ask us to do what we do, and we go over and we go toe-to-toe with evil, and part of that evil touches our soul, and when we need help taking care of that, they say, yeah, this stuff works, but it's too controversial, when it comes to MDMA.
And that's crap.
It works, but we're worried that somebody else might get a hold of it, which is one of the arguments against medical marijuana, which
also crap.
And I'm like, you asked me to go kill people, and you had no moral objection to that, but you have a moral objection to me smoking a joint rather than putting a gun in my mouth.
Yeah.
And that's ludicrous.
It is.
And I'm fortunate, that I got.
But you had to get in and try.